I have a wonderful counselor I've been seeing for years. And I used to, when I first started talking to this counselor, I would rush into his presence and I would just spill all the things that were happening to me, all of the things that had gone wrong for that week or the day. And I would just pour out to the counselor. And then I started to ask for advice. Asked for advice and I got some really good advice, but I never applied the advice. So there's a difference between knowing something and actually putting it into action. So I went through that for a little while until I finally got to the place where I went in, spilled to the counselor still, asked for advice, but also listened to what was being said to me. And then after listening, I actually applied what he was saying to my life, which made all the difference in the world. Because before I was thinking, okay, I'm doing this counseling, I'm doing what I was told to do, but I'm not seeing any results in my life. And I couldn't figure out why that was happening. But it was because I was not also listening intently and with the intention of applying what I heard to my everyday life. And I was listening to a radio program the other day, and it says that it was saying that 90% of us don't pray every day. And for those of us who do pray, we don't know how to pray, or we don't know what's appropriate, or we don't know, whether or not we should say it out loud or in our head. So I know there's a lot of, and when I say prayer, some people immediately want to tune out because it is a heavy subject, because a lot of us have prayed and not had our prayers answered and or felt like we weren't heard. And as some of you know, I was a care counselor at a mega church for many years. And you would be astounded how many people came in and said that they didn't know if God heard them or at all. Or some people said they didn't pray or didn't know how to pray, which is really an incredible statistic, because a prayer relationship, a connection, conversation with God is the most wonderful thing that any human being can establish. My counselor, the one I talked about in the beginning, is God. And he is the one that I have daily conversations with. I start my morning out in a conversation with God. In the afternoon, right before I'm about to crash and want to take that nap around 2:00-ish, instead of going to sleep, I sit down and I have a prayer with God. And in the evening, before I go to bed at night, I review my day and I wrap things up, and I thank God for all the ways that he met my needs and some of the ways that I learned why he didn't. And if I didn't learn why he didn't at that time, I know that in the future I will understand why my prayers were not answered. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say, establish a prayer life. Establish time that you spend talking to the creator of the universe. It's just like any other relationship. He wants to hear from you. Just like you want to hear from your best friend or your spouse or your children if you have them. He gets so excited when we come into his presence and when we want to talk to him, and he does talk back. You have to learn to discern his voice from other voices, and you have to learn how to put yourself out of the way and know that you're hearing from God. And the way I do that is I ask God to tell me something that I wouldn't know on my own. Not even my higher self could access that information. And many times that's happened for me, so many times. So what I want to do today is give you just my way of praying. Like, it doesn't have to be your way. I'm not saying adopt this way, but this is what works for me. And hopefully it works for you. The most important part of this video is to know that no matter where you are, no matter whether or not you've been to church, no matter whether or not you feel like you're living a good life or a sinful life or whatever, you can go to God in prayer wherever you are, anywhere, under any circumstances. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, or they may not agree with what I'm saying, but I'm telling you, you could literally have committed a murder in the morning and you can pray to God at night, because God does want to hear from you. He loves you no matter what. And I use murder because it's like the most heinous thing. But what I'm saying is, start establishing a communication with God and just see how it changes your life. So what I do is I use the Lord's Prayer, and I use it just as a template for how I'm going to work through my prayer process, because Jesus gave it to us and it's a really great template. So we start out with Our Father who art in heaven, and that's not to give God respect. I know some people say it is, but it's really to establish who he is, like where he is, and that he can meet all of our needs. It also establishes our relationship to him, our Father, who would do anything for us, who would literally and did literally die for us. Let your name be sanctified. Also not a respect thing. This is where I pray for humanity, that each and every one of us get to know him on a personal level, and that we call on him. Let his name be sanctified. Let his name be the holiest thing on our tongues, in our lands. And let your kingdom come and let your will be done. Again, a prayer for humanity. This is where I pray for the earth. I pray for the restoration of relationships between the races. I pray for, anything that has to do with humanity, for the homeless, for the children who are being abused, and all of those things. And his kingdom to come, which is the kingdom of healing, the kingdom of casting out demons, the kingdom of provisions for everybody. And that's what Jesus was showing us in doing the miracles that he did. And also that each one of us as humans have the same capabilities. We just need to know how to connect and to tap into them. And if you don't believe me, just go watch the videos. They're doing this in India, the metaphysics, the scientists, they're all doing it. Okay. And then the other part of that is, that your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So again, this is for humanity. Let the peace that God intended for us to live in come down to earth. And we can all do that as a people. It's very simple. Love God, love yourself, love others. That's the kingdom. That is the kingdom message. Heal, cast out, provide. And then I go on to my own needs, which is my daily bread. And not just, God, I need, help me pay my bills and stuff like that. But manna from heaven was the perfect food. It had all the nutrients that the human body needed. It had everything, our daily bread. It had everything that we need. So God is in the business of providing for you totally, from head to toe. So I love the daily bread part. And then forgiveness, where I've fallen short, and that I would forgive others. So if there's anybody who's done me wrong, this is where I release them. Let it go, because what can't God cover? What can he fix? What could be taken from me that he couldn't restore? Lead us not into temptation. Protect us from the evil one. This is where I pray protection over my family, that they would, be safe, that they would be provided for. I pray protection over people that I don't even know. Like I said, the homeless, they're always on my heart. The people who live in extreme conditions are always on my heart. And then wrapping it up with more praise for God and just reverence for what his plan is for humanity. Thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, and it's forever and ever. It's forever and ever. And then I leave time to listen. I leave time to hear God speak back to me and give me my plan for the day. Like I have a plan, I have it written down or whatever, have it in my board or whatever. But I always say, God, let your will be done. Like, what is it that you want me to do with this day? How should I proceed? And then I listen. And the most important part, what we talked about, is then I do what I've been told to do. Sometimes I might want to go, I want to go out and hang out by the beach. God's like, no, not today. I need you to go down to the homeless shelter and volunteer. And so it's the obedience that reaps the reward. So hopefully this has been helpful to you. Leave a comment if it has. Like and subscribe. Let me know if you're having a specific issue with praying. I'd love to help you talk through it and walk through it with you. Okay. I am always here and ready to help God's people. Peace.